This is Julie Pearson, Little Thunder. Today is November 13th, 2014, and I'm interviewing Brent Greenwood for the Oklahoma Native Artist Project sponsored by Oklahoma Oral History Research Program at OSU. We're at Brent's studio in Edmond. Brent, you're Chickasaw and Ponca. You attended the Institute of American Indian Art in Santa Fe and got your BFA from Oklahoma City University. Your works range from expressionistic to more abstract, and you sometimes incorporate real objects for a three-dimensional effect. You've really gained a lot of momentum over the last several years, and tomorrow night you'll be showing at the Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum in the Small Wonders Show. Thank you for taking the time to talk with me.
Thank you.
Where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born in Midwest City, Oklahoma. Grew up in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and in particular the south side of Oklahoma City. So kind of born and raised in a metro area, but I've always had the connections of family up at Ponca City, and more so than I did initially from my relatives in the southeastern part of the state. But I've always had that knowing of where I come from and who I was as a Chickasaw, like you said, urban Chickasaw Ponca Indian.
Can you talk a bit about your folks, what they did for a living, etc.?
Sure. My father, I think in the beginning, when I think back of what he did, I think he worked a couple of jobs when I was younger, and then he started working at the U.S. Postal Service. Now, I know he used to work for a local pizza place called Crystal's Pizza, which we loved, and so I think he may have worked that and the post office at the time, because thinking back when I started the post office, it was part-time, and we had to supplement our part-time with another job. So he was working two jobs. My mom was working at Southwestern Bell and as a receptionist. So that's what she did. Like I said, my dad, I think at the post office, he was more into the clerical side of it, mail handler. And he wasn't a mailman, but he was a mail handler. And but like I said, it was kind of cool that he worked two jobs, one at the post office, but one at the pizza place. Because whenever they had mess-ups on pizzas, Dad's home, yay! So we was always looking forward to those nights when Dad was working late because he was coming home with pizza. And we just like, ah! And I also look back on those years, and those were probably some of my most obese years, I guess you could say. I was really kind of a little chunky guy, and I think it's all those extra pizzas Dad used to bring home. So anyway, that's what my parents did. Dad worked two jobs, and my mom was working at Southwestern Bell.
How about brothers or sisters? Any siblings?
Yeah, I have two sisters. I'm the oldest, and my sisters were all kind of my parents were kind of stair-stepped. We're all 2 years apart. So it's kind of funny how I was envious of them, as I guess this is probably the way that goes with older siblings, is that you're more, I think, restricted on things, but the younger ones always get to do things sooner than you did, and it's kind of happened that way with my sisters. And I was kind of, I'll say envious, I was kind of mad in a way, whatever, but I have two sisters, so.
How about your exposure to art in the home growing up?
Art was always something that I think my parents recognized as me having a ability to do and express myself. I mean, I got my first art award from illustrating a book, and back then when you're young and looking at other people's style, all you're doing is mimicking their style, and that's what I was doing. I could look at a picture and then draw it detail for detail, and so I got my first art award when I was like in the 4th grade, and then so after that, I mean, I think it was before then, my parents were always saving my artwork, and they were buying me art books. But as I got older, and realizing that we are Indian, we are Native American, that I kind of started being more, I guess, influenced by not say early Indian art, but Indian art in general. And you'll probably get to this question, but I'll just tell you now, some of my early influences were like just the Oklahoma artists that I knew, that kind of I was aware of, and that was Rance Hood and Jerome Tiger, and there was art that I really did like growing up, but I didn't always know the names. And so as I started to become more aware of that art, I realized that the other art that I was kind of influenced by, but at that young age didn't realize the artists themselves. But I realized there was Woody Crumbos, or AC Blue Eagles, there were the Kiowa Five, and so Robert Redbird, these other Oklahoma artists that had influenced my work at a very young age, which I didn't even know their names or faces, but I said the two that I know I could definitely relate to at that young age was Rance Hood and Jerome Tiger. And those are the artists that I really kind of started mimicking their style and kind of doing the flow of it all, the hair on the warriors on horseback like Rance does, the stickballers of Jerome Tiger, just the flow of everything of Jerome Tiger, just his natural drawing ability. I was kind of in awe of that. And me being a drawer, I guess you say, first, before a painter, before any of that, all that, I was kind of really inspired by what he did and kind of motivated to pursue or keep doing what I did at that time. So,
well, what is your first memory of like making art? Very first memory.
Oh man, dirt. In the dirt, playing with I mean, I can remember using sticks and making making marks in the dirt with rocks and sticks, and just making mud, and just kind of being real hands-on about it. And then just the typical crayon, and I remember doing all those things, some, not all of them, but I do have a recollection of doing some of the drawings and things like that. And even back then, thinking about it, I really did gravitate towards color. I did like a lot of color, so all my pieces always had crayon color marks and things like that. So it goes back to elementary school, from as far as I can remember.
And your first exposure to Native art, was it through a book, do you remember, or?
I think it was from what I recall, is from pictures on the wall that I would see in a public place.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's so cool, is that even me at a young age realizing that and picking up on that, that's why I said it's cool. That's why that's so important to have art in public places, because it's going to be influential on it's everyone. From I don't even know how old I was, but I was a very young person when I noticed the art on the walls and Jerome Tigers and things like that, and just so that's why I think that's very vital. Art in public places, art in buildings, whatever. So that's why I think where I first kind of really started taking notice was art in the public sense.
So even you're growing up in this kind of urban area, were you pretty involved with the urban Indian community in Oklahoma City?
Somewhat through school I was, and plus being on South Side, we had other Indian friends. We had a lot of Mexican friends, Mexican Indian friends. So there was a nice mix of ethnic people, I guess you would say. But it was all the influences I had from my native friends. It was all from an urban perspective, because I didn't grow up around our Ponca reservation, like we like to say, our White Eagle area. But I went back home for holidays. I went back for celebrations and dances and meetings we had. So all my circle of friends were urban Indians, urban people, but that was my area of influence, and we all kind of had. But I was like, there's only a few of us that were really kind of artists expressing ourselves. It was more about, I grew up in the 80s. I was a child of the 80s, so I was into breakdancing and hip hop and graffiti, and so kind of jumping ahead there, but that was my early influences.
So what were your art experiences like in elementary school? Any memories that stand out?
Yeah. It's funny you bring that up, because there's this one class I had. It was a third and fourth grade class. It was combined. Just, I guess even back then we were lacking in teachers, and we had to combine some classes. So at my elementary school, this is I think to this day is one of the coolest projects I ever did. Our teacher, she had us do a self-portrait of ourselves and put it on a journal. And then we had weekly themes, and we had to write stories. And so I still have this book somewhere, but it's just a spiral notebook with my portrait on there of I remember the shirt I drew. I remember wearing that, and I was like, I remember that haircut. And it's just a crayon self-portrait, and all these stories are funny to read because they're thematic, and they're just from the imagination of a child that is just, you know, really didn't have internet, didn't have all this stuff, didn't have all these outside influences. So it really did show like the imaginative side of what a child can do. And to me, that's like, man, it's like one of the greatest projects I ever did. You know, was incorporate writing, it incorporated, you know, drawing with my portrait, and I think I sketched on a few of the pages, but it was just combining those elements of writing, the analytical side plus the creative side. But to me, to this day, I think that's one of the coolest projects I ever did. And so that's when I think of something that really formal drawing, that's one of them, because I did my self-portrait. And then I remember that art award I got, which was in, I think, the fourth grade. So
Right.
those are my earliest recollections of school, art in the school.
How about at the secondary level or junior high level?
Yeah, it was more of continuing to, in middle school, it was a more like independent study, so to speak, because it was just like, we did it. I don't even really readily recall taking an art class per se in middle school, but I did it all the time. I still was drawing, and even more so in middle school, my drawings start more mimicking like Rance Hood and Jerome Tiger, even to the point where my Indian education director got me into an art show, which is at the Crossroads Mall, and I entered, and then they kicked me out of it, so to speak. They pretty much didn't let my entry get into the show because they said I traced one of Rance Hood's paintings. And I'm like, in a way that was a compliment. I said, well, if I'm that technical that they thought I traced, and my Indian ed director tried to tell me that she tried to take up for me, they said, no, he traced one of Rance's paintings. That's not art. And so I said, well, wow, I must be pretty technical and drafting and all that to be able to
Right.
come across as someone who traced one of his pieces. But all I did was I took his, I think there was one where it was a buffalo hunt, and then I took the same idea, used his style, and then even back then I realized I didn't want to copy anyone necessarily. I knew that I had to take what they did but then make it my own. And so although it was typical Rance Hood style with the hair and everything, feathers and the painted horses, it still had something different that painting I looked at didn't. You know, I think I put these buffaloes in there, and they were like a different composition, obviously. But there again, I had the bird, like, you know, I had the flying owls or the scissor tail coming out. Well, I drew one of those, and like I said, so they can't tell me that they said this is just like this painting, because it's not. I mean, it's his style, obviously, and I just mimicked his style to a degree that they thought I traced it. So that was in middle school, and then high school was more. I had a couple formal art classes where I did get some painting and get introduced to some different mediums, which that was cool.
Kind of watercolor or acrylics?
Yeah, one of them was on felt board, and it was pastel on felt board, and it was pretty cool though. I mean, it was oil pastel, so I did a lot of blending, and it was on felt, and that was one of the cool projects I did. So even then, like I said, I was using my hands to feel like I wasn't constricted just to paintbrush or a pencil, and it was kind of helping me explore a little bit, step outside the box.
Right. So how about after high school? What happened?
Didn't want to go to college. That's for sure. Didn't want to go to college. I figured I had enough schooling that I always just wanted to take a break. So, but my parents really, I'm thankful for them. They encouraged me to go and pursue a degree. They said, we went, but we didn't finish. You'll be the first one. If you go and finish, you'll be the first one in our family. I've heard that before, for my generation, to be the first one to go to college and graduate. So I felt like, well, if they're going to support me enough and encourage me with my art, and I got a partial scholarship at OCU, that's where I started out, then I might as well try it and see. And then when I got to college, it just kind of opened my eyes up to a whole new world of possibility. And then so therefore, I try to do a bunch of different things. I joined a fraternity. My wife still questions me to this day, why the heck did you ever get in that fraternity? But I got in the fraternity. I got into, just doing different things in school. Art, did my art. So, but probably did a little bit of partying. That's maybe what geared my idea towards the fraternity. But that's another story. but that's not the emphasis, right? So the emphasis was on the art. It always has been. And so the first year there, I was kind of learning all these fundamentals of art, the basics, like I say. In the second year, it was kind of like I didn't feel a challenge. I was trying to ask, I was trying to reach out, like, because my work still to a degree looked like Jerome Tiger or Rancid, the typical, you know, what later becomes, for me, Oklahoma art. It had that same look, but I wanted to do something more than just painting feathers and Indian guys with hair blowing in the wind and wrapped in a blanket and silhouette of a moon, or not, you know, just landscape, silhouettes of landscapes and elements of moons and sun. I wanted to do more than that, but I wasn't able to tap into my potential, I guess, because I didn't know how to. And so I knew about the Institute of American Indian Arts. I heard about it my senior year in high school, but I didn't. My art teacher at the time gave me the information, but I just couldn't get my stuff together. Like I said, I wasn't ready. I didn't feel like I was ready. And everything happens for a reason, you know. Say I did go to IA right out of high school. No telling, you know, where I would have ended up, I think. But the fact that I did go to OCU and I stayed local, I was able to go home and still, you know, because, you know, moving out, it's kind of scary, you know. I had to live on campus, but I always could go home when I wanted to, because my family, they built that foundation for me of family, of tradition, and we are all also raised in a Methodist church. I had that as a religious base, as well as our Native American spirituality of the Native American church. So I always had that strong foundation, and being close to home the first couple of years really did, I think, make a difference, because then I was ready for IA, and then it wasn't such a culture shock. Because what I noticed when I was out there, these students right off the res, 18, some 7, they were like, they couldn't cut it. It was such a culture shock. Even though you're around other Indians, just being away from home, some for the very first time, they just couldn't deal. And there was a lot of dropouts. There was some partying going on to the extreme that they got kicked out. So it was just different things. So I was like, well, I'm kind of glad I took 2 years before I come out here. I might have been one of those students that just came right back home because of partying or just not able to handle it at that age of 18. So when I went out there, I was like 20, and got introduced to a whole new world that opened my eyes up to a whole new world of possibilities, really. So, and then from there, like I said, that's when I really kind of got introduced to the artists. Some of the artists I'd seen growing up, but couldn't always associate names. That's when I really started becoming aware of the movement of Indian art and contemporary Indian art, and how it spoke to people, how it moved people, the narratives of it all, the political side of it, the beautiful side of it. You know, all this stuff just really overwhelmed me to a point where I was glad. I was like a sponge. I was taking it all in and learning the most I could. And as it's at the same time having to step outside my box of what was known to me in that Oklahoma style of art, and my teachers helping me see things from a different perspective, turning my paintings around, looking at them upside down, doing monotypes to come up with my painting color palettes and stuff like that. Just all these different influx of ideas just really did help mold me into the artist I am today. And you know, it's like Lloyd Kivanu, the founder of the school, you know, he said one of his founding principles was to bring the Indian out in the young people, that Indianness, and I can see he totally fulfilled that mission with me, and it's still doing that today. So that was great. So I finished there, and then I came back to OCU, finished up my bachelor's. So,
did you have any outstanding teachers, or do you remember some classmates over there that continued the artist path?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of them that I still are friends with today, and they're like full-time artists, and they are from the area, and so they've been full-time artists ever since, you know, going back to the late 1990s, early 2000s, because they're in that area where, you know, Indian market, you know, they're in the region where this is such a big thing, and people appreciate it. Not saying they don't appreciate it here, but it's just like there's more of a awareness, and the word I'm looking for, it's just like there's more appreciation for it, I guess is what I'm trying to say, because it's in the architecture, it's in everything you see out there. It's in the foods and the culture, style, whatever. it's out there. It's like in that area. So my friends that are successful today, they were doing this, 10, 15 years ago, because they're in an area. It's like, I always call it the Mecca for Indian art. That's what I always used to refer to it as. And so luckily, like I said, we look back and we laugh at our IA days, because we're like, man, we were crazy back then. And looking at some of our projects, like, oh my God, that was terrible. What were we thinking? But looking at us now, it's like, it was all part of that process, learning process, and it was great. And so I have a good number of friends that are successful in the art world and outside too, doing things that I really did have an influence on their life. Even the ones that didn't graduate, that just went their part and didn't finish, they still have made a lasting impression upon them, and we're still friends today. So,
When did you sell your first piece of art?
Out of college, growing up, I don't think I really ever sold anything. I just gave things away. Like I said, some of the girlfriends I had in high school, I was always drawing in pictures. So those might pop up on eBay or something. But
Yes.
but I was always drawing silly pictures for girlfriends in high school, and I was just always giving things away. So I set some goals for myself once I graduated college on bachelor's. I said, okay, within 5 years, I want to be in a gallery. Start setting these goals, because I feel my art was just still kind of. It just wasn't mature enough. I was still experimenting with all this color and design elements. So I set these long-term goals, and so I graduated in '96. And it's funny, there's a Red Earth reference. Okay, '96 I graduated. Okay, the following year, kind of working on my art part-time. I started the post office part-time, so I was working post office part-time. So anyway, I've been going to Red Earth as a dancer, as a spectator, and now I'm kind of in this art world. Let's try it. Okay, this is local. Let's try it. So I apply for Red Earth, and I get rejected. So I'm like, oh man. So and at this time, my studio's in the garage. I'm just trying to make a way for myself, and the things I had at the time were still kind of similar to what I paint today, but it was a little more tighter, I think, and definitely not as. I can see today the evolution, or so the progression of my art, where there's more depth in it today, as opposed to when it was like in 1997 when I got denied out of Red Earth. So I took that with a grain of salt. But at the time, being relatively young, you're kind of offended a little bit. What? I can't believe that. I've seen some of the art there, and I didn't get in. Just some of the art. There was some of the artists, like, you wonder, like, how the heck did I not get in? So anyway, my figurative pieces have always been about form, shape, and just shading, and not so much the details of hand, the fingers, of say, or the eyes or the mouth. It's always been about form and shape, and I get that. I guess all happened with figure drawing, because in my figure drawing classes at OCU, I was focusing on shapes. I mean, I did some little things here and there with like the hair and stuff, but it was always kind of about shapes and stuff when I transitioned into my paintings. So when I started doing more native subjects, it kind of stayed the same, right? So the faces were non-descriptive, and so the pieces I submitted for Red Earth were those figurative pieces. So I told my wife, I said, maybe I should start working on faces. Maybe I should start doing that. And maybe that's why I didn't get it, because they don't maybe get it. And my wife said, don't change your style just because of what some people think. You do what you want to do, and people will appreciate you eventually for you just continue to do your thing. Don't feel like you have to conform to fit anyone's standards. Just do your thing. So she really did give me a little pep talk. I said, okay, that's cool. So, okay, well, now what? Okay, well, let's start thinking about galleries. So I'm pulling out my Southwest art magazines, Art New, whatever, Native People, start pulling out all my Indian magazines and going through galleries. Well, that looks like a good gallery. Looks like a good gallery. And at that same time, I got commissioned for a piece. At this time, this bank was doing it was a Native American bank. They were doing a promotional card, phone card to give out to the clients. And so on one of my pieces I had from my graduating exhibit from OCU, we had to have a senior exhibit. So one of my pieces was just feathers. It was done on paper and paint, mixed media. So it was kind of a cool piece to put on this phone card. So they gave me a number of these phone cards as a compensation. So I said, okay, well, shoot, this is like a business card. My wife and I, my wife really did. She really did help me. You know, she like helped me brainstorm what to do. She said, you look at the galleries, you can work on this promotional piece. Just send it out. Say, and my name's, you know, a little brief summary about your bio, about yourself, and tell them that, okay, as a, I don't even remember how we worded it, token of appreciation, please accept this 10-minute gift phone card on me and enjoy the work. Hopefully we can do business in the future. Something, you know, really trying to market. So anyway, I sent out to like 31 galleries, and they were from California, New Mexico, Colorado, some here in Oklahoma. I think it was those are about the 4 states we focused on, maybe one in Utah somewhere, but like 31 galleries, right? Well, one calls me back, says, well, we really like your work. We saw some images of your work, because I think I sent some photos or whatever, but the card, they said, we really like your card. We appreciate that phone card, but it's just, we're not taking any new artists at this time. I said, okay, well, I thank you for calling me back. Another gallery, Santa Fe, called me and said, hey, we'd like to see more of your work. Is there any way you can like show us, give us more examples? And I said, well, actually, and it just so happened, it's like how things kind of all happen for a reason. It was like a month out of away from Gathering of Nations powwow, and we were planning on going. I told them, so actually, I'll be in Albuquerque for a powwow in a month. I said, I can stop by the gallery then and bring you some pieces. They said, yeah, go ahead and do that. You know, make sure someone you call first, whatever. And so the gallery was Kiva Fine Art, and I go out there for the gathering. I took out three pieces, right? Some from my show, and at that time they're all the pieces, mixed media pieces on paper. So, or I think there's 2 on paper, 1 on canvas. At any rate, I took out those 3 pieces, and they kept 2 of them. Okay, so they said, well, we really like this style. You think you can maybe, if you want to work on some more pieces, go ahead and, you know, do that, and we'll see how these move. I forgot how she worded it, but she said, we'll see how these do, and we'll stay in touch. And I didn't know how to price my pieces. I said, okay, is 50-50? And I said, well, how about 17.50? I was like, that's kind of high. But my wife's like, no, whatever. they were okay with it. And the piece was only like it's probably about the size of this, with it's framed. And so it's like a 24 by 30. And so I leave that. The other piece was like 1,200, but that 17.50, I was like, well, that's kind of high, but we'll see. Well, 2 weeks later, they call back. Hey, we need some more of your work. We sold that piece for $17.50. We sold it.
That's great.
I was like, are you serious? Really? I was like, I couldn't believe it. I was like shocked. We want more of your work. So that kind of secured my spot with Kiva Gallery, and I'd been with them since 2010. Mm-hmm. And the only reason I'm not with them anymore is that they had a change of they lost their lease basically after being there for 20 some years. The landlord was raising their rent and not cutting any breaks, and so they just had gallery business is tough in Santa Fe, so they had to relocate so they could stay open, keep their doors open. So they relocated to another spot, but I just never relocated with them because by then it was hard for me to keep things out there and do things here. So right. We still have a good relationship, but yeah, that kind of secured my spot with Kiva Gallery, and I'd been with them for 15 years or something like that. So it was a great relationship, and it was just kind of funny how it all fell into place. And so even though I didn't get into Red Earth, I got into Kiva Fine Art and Kiva Gallery. And then, I just did that for a number of years. During the Indian market, we had a special showing. I just did that for a number of years and didn't really think about Indian market necessarily until about 2005. And so I applied for that. 2005, applied for SWAIA, and I got rejected. I said, oh no, here we go again. So I got rejected, so I was like, oh man. And so, I was somewhat seasoned because I'd been in the gallery since '97. And then it was about 2005 when I finally applied. So I was kind of dejected a little bit, and I said, okay, well, whatever. I think I waited another. I think that first year I was really trying for the fellowship too, because I remember applying for that fellowship and I didn't get it. So anyway, I think I waited another 5 years before I applied again. So I finally. Just felt like I was working up to it, so I applied again in 2010, and entered I had a print, or not a print, well, it was a print, it's a wood block. And so it was a wood block I did, and then I went back and colored it with acrylic and made it look like ledger art. And so I put that in my in printmaking, because it was a wood block, and I got first place.
Right.
And so that kind of I want to say that secured my spot in the market, but I've been doing Swaya in the market ever since that. So anyway, long story, I mean, that's not short, but long story, but that's kind of the beginnings of my exposure and experience in the gallery and art market world, and where I'm at today. Still doing the art markets, and now they're just kind of, I'm really expanding now, because I'm doing, like you mentioned, I'm doing that small works great wonders show,
Right.
and I'm doing another show. This will be my second year to do the show in Denver, the Coors Western Art Exhibit. It's a part of the National Stock and Sale Show,
Right.
and so I'm a part of that show. And that's invitation only, so I don't really consider myself a Western artist, and it's all contemporary Western art. But yet, obviously, we're a part of that. We're a part of that history. Our Indian people, and you see it, and going way back. Us and the plains, and then the influence of European clothing and lifeways on us, and how we adapted, and then made it our own. So, in a sense, I guess some of my things I am doing is Western, and so they consider it like that. So, in that Western show in Denver, there's only other. Last year there were only two other artists, and that was Arlo and Dan Dominga. And this year we got, of course, Arlo and Dan coming back, and then Melanie Yazzie, who was a former printmaking instructor of mine at IA. So it'd be cool to see her.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So what was that show like the first year, your first time going?
Oh, it was like.
And it's a big city.
Yeah, it was like the. I keep calling it Cowboy Hall of Fame, but the Western Heritage Art Museum. Is that what we call it now?
Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum, I think.
Okay, Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum. It was like that, but just on a smaller scale. The art there, some of the art there was really amazing. It was really different. You had something that was really really. Some of the stuff there was like impressionistic, really impressionistic, and some was really abstract. And it was horses and cows, but it was just really a nice mix of art, and I could see how my stuff would fit in there. So it was cool. It was a cool experience to be a part of that.
Did you have some good sales?
Yeah, I sold 2 pieces. I took 3 pieces and sold 2 pieces there. And since it was my first year, one of the volunteers said, if you sell anything here, they're going to have you back. So, and I said, well, that's cool, because I sold 2 pieces, so that was awesome. And of course, now this year, I'm speaking on the panel. They have me speaking on one of their panels. So that's kind of cool.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Great. How about CSAM? Did you do that when they started the Southeastern?
I've been a part of the Chickasaw Southeastern Arts Market for probably since its beginnings. It was the Claiborne Strong show at first, and then it transitioned shortly thereafter to the Southeastern Art Sale, Southeastern Art Sale and Market, something like that. See, so that's what it transitioned to, and then I've been with that ever since. And I just saw it as a way to really kind of, because when I do my art, it's either really focusing on kind of plains or Southeastern, and then sometimes there's a mix of the two, but only into the sense that you see like clothing and stuff maybe. Well, yeah, this guy could have been from the plains, but he also has Southeastern elements. But that's the only time, because there was this kind of mix of European clothing and culture and style for the Chickasaws, obviously, because we had an experience with the Americans, way before even my Ponca people did. But there was still that adaptation of clothing and elements and things like that. So what I don't do, I don't ever mix the two cultures, like Chickasaw or whatever. I keep it pretty much separate when I focus on one or the other. It's really going to be Southeastern. Really Ponca, it's not really going to be a combination of the two. Right. But like I said, the clothing is the only thing that you can see obviously similarities in both that I'm working on. And plus, my wife is Oto, and so I am encouraged. When I say encouraged, but I do like a lot of elements of Oto culture, like things are really known for floral work, some of the things that they have with their dress and their attire, which is somewhat similar to our Ponca people, So I have those influences as well. So I always incorporate that when I want to focus on my kind of Ponca or Plains pieces. Some of that Oto elements come out too. So
how did you two meet?
It was at OCU. It was
Oh, it was at OCU? Okay.
Yes, they're a mutual friend. So I'm not gonna.
But she wasn't studying art too.
No, and I could say how the occurrence all happened, how we met, but I don't want to. Since this is going to be out there, I'm not going to say the friend we met through. Although it's kind of a funny story, but anyway. Yeah, but we met through a mutual friend.
But definitely, she's been a good business partner. That's sometimes the hardest thing when you're an artist, is dealing with the business part.
Yeah, well, she's been, especially in the beginning, she's been very encouraging to help me in any way she can, as she could, with ideas and things like this. And but now even today, like she maintains my website when she can. She's a graphic designer now, so I think that art's always been in her background too, and she just never has. Because even when I was meeting her, we were doing small art shows together. She was painting candles and doing small canvases, just to because she had this kind of little artsy nature about her too. But then she got hired on to work for her tribe in a local office, just simply as a receptionist. But then they started needing other things, like business cards, and she started working things on the computer. Started out pretty simple, but then they sent her to school for graphic design and paid for it. And now she's like their head of. If they had a graphic design department, she'd be the director, because she handles everything. She does. And what's cool about it, she uses that artistic influences from her Oto side, the upbringing, whatever she's done, and she incorporates that in a graphic design sense. Has that sensibility about her when she does her artwork through graphic Photoshop or I don't know what programs she uses, but she's very skilled at that. She designs my business cards and so things I can't even imagine when I'm still trying to think about cut and paste. Here here, just do it this way, and she can flip stuff and like that. Even when I was in college taking commercial art classes, it was still pretty much cut and paste. That was in the early '90s. We didn't have access to the computer stuff they do now, so it just makes things so much easier to do things on a computer and just make it look really nice and sharp and artsy. So so she uses that to her full benefit. Everything she's learned and still continues to learn. So, but so she's always had that influence.
You've got it. I like your website. What were some early reactions when you developed this mature style? And as you say, you're focusing on form. You're not focusing on features. And I saw that you mentioned Bert Seaburn as kind of an influence a little bit, but also I thought of Virginia Stroud a little bit and what she does with form. But what were some early reactions to your work, maybe? Do you remember? Either the best compliment or maybe the funniest reaction.
Well, I'll get the funniest one out of the way. I just think this was at the gallery, and when I was doing gallery shows during the Indian market, we always kind of hung around the gallery to talk about our work, try to sell our work. So, and I didn't know. I let people look at it and kind of take it in for what they wanted to, however they were engaged. And then if they had any questions, I would sit there and if you have any questions on the artist, I let them kind of digest it first. So there's these two ladies in particular. They kind of really looked at it. It was one of my figurative pieces, which just had shadows and a face, no face really. And they're real looking at it. And they're like this close, and they're looking at each other. Like, and when I was just getting ready to say, if you have any questions on the artist, but she just, as I was getting ready to say that, she leaned over to her friend and said, "Oh, can't paint faces." And she was like, "Yeah." And then they started to walk on. I was like, "I'm not gonna say nothing. I'm not gonna. I don't have to defend myself. I don't have to. If that's what they got from it, there was so much things going on in that piece with the message. It was a narrative piece, and I think the piece was dealing with the Osage oil murders, and so it had the foreground was an Osage man, and the back was his wife in the car waiting on him. And she was like looking out the window, like, "Come on, what are you doing?" He was sitting there in the foreground, but I had all these oil derricks in the background, and on the side I had Wajaje. And instead of blood dripping, it was oil dripping, representing the blood. And then, like in the underpainting I had, it was like blood splatters. And but show the transition of horse to the car. You know, like I had tire tracks coming, and then they started out as horse tracks, and they turned into tire tracks into the car. So, but anyway, that was kind of referencing and I think I had text in there. I always used to incorporate text of like stories and facts, and so I would incorporate and collage it in there and paint over it, but keep some evidence so you can kind of catch things the message that was being expressed. So in that particular piece, it has some of those elements of it, but it was just dealing with the 1920s, those Osage oil murders, because my whole thing is that I wanted people to get from it what they wanted to, but at the same time get some information, factual information, to make them look, oh, what was this? What's he referencing, or what's he talking about? I didn't want to put it out there and like it's in your face and so political that you just can't look at it like, oh my God, it's just, you know. And I have done some pieces like that, but I'm real subtle about it. I think to a degree where they can enjoy it on their own level, and then at the same time maybe go look up the information for themselves. That's what I try to do. Give them indirect little nuggets of information about our story, whatever that painting may be focusing on at that time. So, but that's the funniest.
Yes.
So, hey, and other than compliment, I think one of the highest compliments, the fact that I'm doing what I'm doing, and people can relate to it and are engaged and want to have a piece of this experience in their home for however long, that to me, that's the highest compliment. That, and whenever I have another artist actually invest and want to buy something that I've done, I say, wow, that's pretty cool, you know. And I've done that too, you know. I've bought other artists' works. Just, you know, you really do have, as an artist too, you still are overcome by some people's work. You just, man, I gotta have that, and I'm gonna buy it. And that's the coolest thing, is that you can really have that effect on people. And that, to me, like I always used to say, that's kind of like the reward, is that it's not financial or anything like that. I don't do it for the money. I do it for the kind of the sharing of a story, of a culture, of who we are. And to me, anything in addition to that, I mean, that's like, you know, icing on the cake, yeah, but it's more about getting my message out there and just doing it for the sake of doing it, because I enjoy what I do. And that's what drives me. It's not like, oh, I can know if I paint this, I'm gonna get $500, or if I do this, I'm gonna get $500. Whatever. Yeah, it's not about that. But it's nice because it helps pay bills and helps fund my next art show. So that's always the fun side of it. But it's a cycle, you know, and it just encourages me as an artist to keep doing what I'm doing. It's positive reinforcement that I can do this, to the point where, you know, I was able to quit my full-time job at the U.S. Postal Service. And although I work still somewhat a full-time job here, I'm local. I took a leap of faith, and I'm also, I mean, it's public education. So I'm able to supplement that income by my art sales and what I do. So I knew this first year was going to be rough. We're still in this first year. So it's been pleasantly,
as assistant director.
Yeah, as a program assistant.
Right,
yeah.
Program assistant.
Yeah, which sounds all nice and big, but it's really it just means you're just do this, do that. No, I'm just kidding. It's this first year's been, you know, like, so I was wondering if I had to go. I was really thinking, okay, what's plan B if this doesn't work out? If we can't make it with my art sales and art show money, I can always go work at the post office here. You know, I know the job in and out. If it came down to that, luckily, that hasn't even been an option. You know, the art shows, just art opportunities keep coming up to where I got like 3 shows next year already. And so it's really good. Like I said, it's encouraging. It's continuing to keep that cycle going and keeping me encouraged to do what I do. So.
How about, have you had any mural commissions yet?
Yes, I've had actually two. It's
Okay.
the Ponkas
Okay.
have commissioned me, and
For their tribal complex?
yes, it's at the Tribal Affairs Building. The funny thing about that is it's still incomplete. It's about 90% done,
Wow.
but it's because at the time I had the contract. My mom was on the council, and we had this contract in place, and I was working on it. I was supposed to have help. It's 18 by 24, 18 foot tall by 24 foot wide mural, and it's the history of our Ponca people. And so I did the research. I took what stories I had. I visited with one of my elders who was in Bethany at the time to study and well, not to study, but to learn and to hear stories about our people and what would be best to express. So he was like really my greatest mentor for this piece. So with that, I worked on this piece. Supposed to have help. My help never came through for me. So I said, well, I guess my mom was like, well, that's tough. You get the whole contract then. That's okay, cool. So I was working on it when I could, driving the miles, staying up there. So it was really hard to put a time frame on when I was going to finish it. I just knew I was going to finish it, right? Well, I got to a point where it's getting close to being finished, but not quite. But then they have tribal elections, and a new council gets voted in. And the way our politics are set up is we have a council, business council with 7 members, and once 4 have the same agenda, they have the quorum. So you got these 4 new people in there that had all the same agenda, and that was to get the previous council out of there. So yeah, out with the old, in with the new, and so there went my contract. And so it was being paid to me in 4 installments, and I had 3 installments. And so when this new council went in, and I went in, sat before them like a couple weeks after this transitional period, and said, well, can I continue working on this? And I can draw up a new contract if you want. This is how much is left owed to me on this. And the council, the new chairperson that they voted in, well, Brent, I don't know. He says, you said that you wanted to do this for the people, and you want to do this for future generations, like your children and their children. He says, I really appreciate that, and I think you should do that, but do it for free. And I'm like, okay. And my cousin, she luckily was on the council too at that time, but she tried to take up for me. She says, well, that's good, but I'll have you know that, Brent, what he's charging per square foot, that's like, normally those 12 by 12 paintings he sells are like $450, $500. And she threw that out there, and which is true in some instances, like for fundraisers and things like that. It can go as high as $500 for 12 by 12. And so what I was charging them was like $75 a square foot,
yeah.
Something like that. And just something real, just affordable, right? But then he said do it for free, and she tried to take out for me, and then he said, well, we just don't have the money. When it comes down to it, Brent, we just don't have the money. So just if you kind of think about doing it for free, you can work on it and blah blah blah. So, and in my mind, I didn't say it, but I was like, you know what? You also said on your platform you wanted to serve your people and do for your people. So why don't you serve your people for free? Why don't you sit in your position where you're at as our chairman, and why don't you do that for free? Okay? And why am I any different? Is it because I'm an artist and you think just because we can paint we should just do this for free? Well, that's my vocation in a way. And I'm coming up here, I'm putting out, it costs money for gas, costs money for food, costs money for these supplies, and my time. Just like your time is being spent to govern our tribe. And honestly, I don't know what you're doing, but you don't have to leave that in there. Because I'm about to get political. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, I left it at that. I bit my tongue. I didn't say that, but I thought that. So anyway, I went and worked on it probably several months after that. But it just got to a point where financially it wasn't feasible for me to keep going up there. And so I said, well, I need to get just another grant or something to finish this up so I can get some more supplies and then clear coat it. And then what's cool about the Chickasaws is, they said they would come up there and photograph it for me with a panoramic and whatever. They would set the lights up and everything and photograph it. They said, once you get that finished, let us know. We'll come up here and shoot it for you.
Great.
I said, okay, cool. So, anyway, that's even more incentive for me to get it done too. So that's one. And the other project is one I'm currently working on and about to finish up, and that's with the Chickasaws. It was mentoring some youth with a mural project I have down in Tishomingo. So, and that one's at the refuge, National Wildlife Refuge, which there's an Outlook building there, and they want a history of the area prior to the refuge, prior to when it became a refuge. And so I did the research, there again did research, presented my idea, and mentored several youth over this past summer, 2014, and worked on it. So that was challenging too, because I had one student that I mentored. She was like a true artist. I could sketch out something, the composition, and she could do it. And no, I didn't have to go back and like, okay, I'm gonna touch this up or touch that up. A couple of my students, I drew things out for them, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, yeah, oh yeah, okay, and they just talk, and you know, I'm advocating paint outside the lines, man. You know, step outside that box. But if I'm actually sketching something, there's sometimes you got to paint within the lines and follow design. And they were just like, oh, okay. But they said, you know, they weren't painters, and so that project, that mentoring project was fun. But also times I just want to go, oh man, I could have been done with this part by now, but I'll have to go back and touch it up. But anyway, all of this aside, that process was great. I got to mentor some young people.
Opportunity.
Work with a great artist who she's like just lights out. She can draw anything that you put in front of her. I mean, just from memory, what she can do is just amazing. She's gonna really go far in art. And she's already trying to challenge me. She says, hey, next year I'll be 18, so I'll be in your category. I said, that's fine. Come on. I was like, bring it. No, that's what's great. It's what's great when you can really push young people.
Right, when you find that talented
to do more and be better, even than I was, you know, or I am. So anyway.
That's very cool. One of your paintings was on the cover of the Oklahoma Native Tourism Guide. Do you remember how that came about?
Yeah, that piece was commissioned, and the cool thing about commission works, they used to scare me to death, because I'm like, oh my God, I would need to paint to my vision, not someone else's. I was always felt that was like taken away from what I wanted to do, my creative side, but it's really not, because I realized the commissions have come now that they see what I do, they like my style, so they give me free reign on what to do. They just give me their ideas, and I'm like, well, that's not so hard. If I take their ideas and interpret it through my means of expressing this or that, or whatever, and tie that cultural aspect into it, that's what they want. And so that's what's been cool about the commissions I've received, is that they like my style, so it makes it easy for me to kind of paint what they want. I just kind of focus on pulling out those elements that they request. And so for the tourism guide, they want to focus on tribal peoples, they want to focus on the state itself and breaking it up into tourism areas, as well as incorporating elements of Oklahoma. So that's what I did. I took those ideas. They didn't tell me how to sketch it out or tell me what to paint. They told me what they wanted, and then how I interpreted that is what you saw in the tourism guide. And what's cool is that, you know, as the painting took shape, it's cool how all these things kind of came together. Like I wanted to incorporate rose rocks, Oklahoma stuff, you know, scissor tails, rose rocks, the red dirt, our tribal entities, and different representations of tribal entities. So it just went all plains, feathers. You saw eastern, like the feathered cap, skull cap. I say skull cap, but caps or whatever. And the turbans, and you saw all this mix of tribal people, and it showed the range of who we are today. We're just not all buckskin and feathers, you know. That's definitely a part of it, but there's also this side of it and this side of it. It shows the diversity of our people. So that's what I wanted to illustrate, and then, you know, just kind of incorporate some other designs, southeastern designs like cattle designs and stuff like that. So anyway, I just took what they had we kind of brainstormed about, and that's what I approach my commissions. If I get a commission, I take my sketchbook, I go sit down and visit with the person and see what they want, and then from there I start doing my research and provide a blueprint, so to speak, and then they say, yeah, we like this, can we have a little more of this, a little more of that, and then I go for it. So
how much of your work is commissions right now, do you think?
Oh, it's still probably just like probably like a third.
A third. That's good. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then to the pieces that sometimes aren't always commissioned, I get asked to use them for conferences. Like I'm going to be going out to San Diego for a wellness conference, and they wanted something dealing with healing. And it just so happens I finished this piece called Alikchi, the healer in Chickasaw, which was a piece at the Kramer School of Nursing at Oklahoma City University. So that's what's cool is that I still have rights to that image. I still own that image. I mean, they own the painting, obviously. They commissioned me for it, but the piece really spoke to that conference, and I said that'd be perfect for it. And they liked it too for the wellness conference, and they used that image. And so with that, it's kind of cool because when you get picked up for a conference like that, well, usually they give you a room, hotel room, and an exhibitor space, and an honorarium. So I got that. So. Looking forward to going to San Diego.
Yeah, that'll be wonderful.
Yeah.
So what's been one of the most, one of your best kind of honors, do you think, up to this point?
I definitely, hands down, it's going to be the honor that my wife and I received for being Parents of the Year. That happened in 2009.
Right.
The National Indian Education Association selected us. We won the Oklahoma Indian Parents of the Year in 2008, and we said, man, how do we do that? So, and so that put us up for running for the national honor. And what's cool too about that is that at that time for NIEA, they had always selected one parent. It was called Parent of the Year. And so my wife and I, we were the first to be nominated as parents. And so we kind of set a precedent after that, and I think the year after that, a Crow couple won, and so I think there may be another couple that won since then. But to me, I was like, wow, it's always just been parent, because to me, parenting goes hand in hand, and sometimes it takes a village to raise your family. Mm-hmm. So it hasn't been just us, I just don't credit us. We've had good support from my parents, my wife's family as well. So. And then, too, my son always says, well, it's just because we're awesome kids. That's why I got nominated, right? So that's another funny thing to that, too. When we won, I think my kids, this is like, 2009? So 5 years ago, my son was 13, my daughter's, 10, respectively. They're about that age. So when I won, we're being congratulated and everything. And this guy says, oh, congratulations. He says, how old are your kids? I said, 14 and 11, 13, 10, whatever. He said, oh, okay, well, I was really going to be impressed if they were teenagers and you won this. He said, wait till they're teenagers. I said, oh, okay. I said, thanks a lot. And so I said, yeah, I can see what he means. It's challenging. but he said, yeah, wait till they're teenagers.
I'd like to talk about your creative process and techniques a little bit. And you work mostly in acrylics on canvas or board, I think. What do you like about that format?
Well, I like, I work more on paper. I don't work on board necessarily. It's like paper, so I can just incorporate the drawing aspect of what I do. I still find myself just wanting to draw, so I incorporate the drawing and then go back in with some paint and just that mixed media aspect. I like that. But the majority of my works are primarily acrylics on canvas. I like a lot of texture. I like, color, obviously. The texture, a lot of times I'll use rice paper. I like rice paper for if I want to create texture for clouds and things like that. I'll use rice paper, or I'll use a gel medium for textures in clothing to kind of see folds or ripples. I'll use. What I'll do is I'll sketch things out in charcoal, and then I'll get my gel medium and start going with the form and whatever. So I like doing that, and of course, sometimes I use the coarse pumice gel for dirt or whatever, landscape. So I like a lot of texture, and so you see that, and obviously collage. I'll collage papers, and I've used fabric, and especially on some of my pieces that kind of are referenced. Or referencing ledger art, I'll use like papers, or you can see all the papers in the background. Right, I got all these papers I like using for shirts.
Cool looking papers, yeah.
I like collecting different papers to use for shirt designs and things like that. So I just like using a wide variety of things, but canvas, acrylic on canvas is my primary medium.
Yeah, I love the care that you put into the clothing when you're depicting clothing. Yeah, it gets as much love and as attention as the rest of the composition.
Thanks. Yeah, like I said, I enjoy it. Like I said, too, when I paint...
Do you think it comes from also being a dancer, like your background? And
yeah, that helps. I mean, a lot of times I'm having to pose, too, for it. So, like...
Oh, you are?
Yeah, like if I want a certain fold in a shirt, I put that... I pull out my Indian shirts and I'll put them on and I'll be in front of the mirror, like, posing or taking pictures
and
of
taking
myself.
a picture, okay.
Those are the only selfies I do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, everybody's taking these young people take selfies these days. Well, I do it for artful purposes, and that's it. So, but yeah, that's what I just sometimes, I just want to get those folds, just kind of, everything doesn't have to be exactly the way it is known. I mean, I just like to get a certain fold, and then from that, it helps me in future paintings I did it, and so I know how to do it again. So I'm gonna just create these folds in the shirt. Even for this piece here, I probably I probably put on the shirt. I mean, I had a photo to reference, but sometimes those photos are grainy and old, and I needed to see how the shirt would look for real. So I'll put on a shirt,
right,
get those folds just right, and I'll sketch them out. So
right.
and then for some of my figurative pieces too, I'll have my son or my wife or my daughter model. Can you hold your hand out like this, or can you stand like this? So they serve as my models sometimes too. So.
And so you'll be sketching, or will you take a photograph, or both sometimes?
Both. Yeah, I usually take a photo for reference because they go, oh, no, I don't have to have them stand there forever. So I'll sketch them out real quick. I'll take a photo, then I'll sketch it out real quick, and then I'll go back to the photo and kind of touch up. So.
Right. So what other kinds of research do you do aside from like sketching and photographs?
Well, I used to read books a lot, I guess from school, to just, get more knowledge and information, and I think it hasn't happened as much because I started just kind of painting from a place of knowing, of these stories, like our stories of, like Ponca, for instance. Some of our tradition is told in the songs, and I've interpreted that to paintings. I've taken things that my elders have expressed to me it could have been a humorous story, or it could have been a teaching about how we, how the American hand game came to be, whatever, it could have been something as complex or simple as that. So it's just researching firsthand, try to get the information firsthand, and then reading. Like I said, I need to do more reading. I haven't done as much here lately, but because I always had the people that I needed to talk to here with me, and that's how I would get a lot of my information. And then just, recollection of stories and things that I grew up hearing. So.
How about titles for your paintings?
Yeah, usually the title usually happens before, and I paint to that. And it's probably about 50-50 now. It used to be, I think, always the title came first because that was the idea. Okay, cool, I like that phrase, or I like what the title would just pop in my head. Okay, I'm going to paint something to that title. But now it's like 50-50, like this piece back here, the three pieces, it was actually inspired from a piece I did for Indian Market like in 2004 or 5, around that time frame. And it's one of those pieces where I took it to Santa Fe and worked on it in the hotel room.
Yeah.
I didn't get any professional photos made of it, and I sold it that weekend. So all I have is like a 4x5 glossy photo of it, and that's it. It was never professionally shot or anything. So someone had saw that and they liked it, and they wanted me to reproduce that for like a commission piece for a festival. So I said, yeah, I can do that with the same style. Definitely won't use the same kind of composition. I kind of did in the way as far as the figurative women, but then I used different elements to represent different styles of women clothing. And then the elk's teeth, that's kind of like three-dimensional element I like to add. Right. Sometimes I will add horsehair or shells or elk's teeth just to add that kind of native element. I like to do that too. So like I said, I just like to experiment. I like to have fun with art. It just always have to be, steady 2D easel painting. I like to experiment. Therefore, like I said, I use papers, material, rice paper, what have you.
Right.
Incorporate drawing and painting, charcoal. In this case, elk's teeth. So I just like to keep it fresh and keep the ideas, kind of just, I guess, a fresh approach to what I do, relying on that traditional elements. But
So what is your process your creative process once you get an idea?
oh, it's what's been kind of cool here lately is I've done more live paints here of late, and it seems like that's kind of becoming a popular. It's taken on more popularity now. People like to see that process, and I think it's really cool as an artist to be able to engage with the audience and for them to see that process. And sometimes it's not even about me finishing a piece, although that's my goal. Sometimes I like for them to see the process and what happens during that process, so it's like action painting, it's just really just into it, just like and I think that's what's cool about live painting is people see the process and are able to engage on a certain level with that and connecting. So that's talking about live painting, but getting back to just my regular pieces, what was the question again?
Your creative process once you get an idea.
Once I get an idea, oh yeah, it's kind of, in a way, it seems kind of formal, I think, because when I get an idea, I sketch it out.
You do, and you keep a notebook too.
Yeah, I have sketchbooks. Yeah.
Okay.
And like, for instance, I just did a piece for a fundraiser for the Five Tribes Museum, Five Civilized Tribes Museum, called Rock. It was called Rock Your Mocks, and it was just paintings on shoes, right? Blank shoes. So I kind of knew what I wanted to do. But you always don't know if it's going to work. So I have to sketch it out, and then I kind of play around with it. Okay, this works, this doesn't. To finally come to a point, well, this will look cool, so you go with that, right? So I wanted to do butterflies. So I had to sketch out how am I going to do these butterfly wings on these shoes. And so I sketched it out to get it the way I wanted, and then it just kind of took a shape of its own, came to life. And so that's the way it is in my paintings. I sketch out what I want to do first. There's this ledger piece I'm working on, and before I even mess up my ledger paper, because I know ledger paper is old, I'm going to sketch it out first, the way I want it, and then I'll use this as my model to get this design onto my ledger paper. So I always have to sketch it out first, so I can get it just how I want it, when it comes to my especially my figurative pieces. All the other stuff happening in the background, the color, I just want that stuff to be real loose, the way the color blends with one another. And then my figurative pieces, I start tying things in a little bit more. But it all starts out with a sketch. And two, as you all know, sometimes what you see initially doesn't always end up the way you think it will. And that's what's cool about it too. Sometimes it morphs into something else, it evolves, it changes. And one of my one of my influences, he really is a great influence on what I do, is Mark Rothko, and I always appreciated his approach and how he was as engaged with his work as people that saw it, whatever they felt. It was like they were in that place with him at that time, even though he wasn't there physically with him. It's whatever he was doing in his pieces, it transcended beyond him, because people really, and it's taken me on a journey to where I've just really, his palette, his in particular his paintings of just what they call color field paintings, which aren't really color field paintings, but those abstract pieces. And he all wanted the viewer to be evoked by something that they saw, and that's kind of what my approach is. If they can't engage that, okay, he can't really paint faces. That's what they think, cool, but if there's something else in there that can kind of get them, maybe my color usage and the way I combine these colors, that's what I want to get them. So they can appreciate the fact that I'm just working on shadows or not so much eyelids and a mouth and nose. I just want that that color palette to tie everything in together for them. So my process, and the point I'm getting to is that during my process, the closer it is for my painting as it takes shape and starts to finish up, I have to sit there and just look at it. Now, I heard Rothko would sit in front of his painting for hours just looking at it. Now, I don't take that long, but I might sit in front of it for like 10 minutes or 15 minutes just looking at it and kind of seeing, okay, how is this speaking to me as an artist? Do I need to work on this more? Do I need to move over here? So I become really engaged, and that's what's really cool about it, is that I realize the closer I am to finishing a piece, the more it draws me in, and the more I see myself sitting back and kind of looking at it, stepping away and just kind of looking, you know? And that's what's cool about art, and it's just something it's hard to explain sometimes. I can do that when I see someone's work I really do admire, just to see their process and see where they were at when they created this one area. Right. It kind of puts me in my place of just engagement, you know? And so that's a part of my process too that I really do like, and try to transcend even what I do so that when it's in front of a total stranger, they get engaged, because they can see that point in time where maybe where I was working on this, and there's just so much of this area just really kind of speaks to me, you know. Maybe they can feel that too.
Right.
So that's what, during the process, I just want my work to kind of, in a way, to kind of have that same kind of feeling and reaction, you know, for people.
Can you talk about your signature a little bit? Is it pretty straightforward?
Yeah, you know, it's funny when I first started. Yeah, that was the funny thing. You know, how do you really develop a signature, right? Well, first of all, my penmanship is crappy. You know, I can't write penmanship for nothing. I guess I could when I was younger, but it was too like structured, and then he got older. I don't know if it's part of being lazy or whatever, but it was always too tight, right? And so as I got into college and stuff, and when it came down to my signature, it was pretty simple at first, but then I probably, like a lot of artists, I started working on it. I started trying to work on a signature. Okay, I look at all these artists' nice signatures, and okay, I need to work on mine too. So in the beginning, it was totally illegible, and just like a bunch of scribbles. You can see a B, but then there's a bunch of little up and down lines. You can see a G, and there's a bunch of up and down lines. And then it started to mature. And then I started getting really kind of putting R-E-N-T. I mean, it still had this kind of up and down kind of structure, but yet there was still a little bit more definition to it, a little more, I don't want to say sensibility about it, but it was like it started taking shape, and it became more artsy, you know, to just kind of, instead of just being, just kind of crazy, and, you know, and not to say that just those simple signatures, like, say, some artists have, where it's just like maybe a couple lines, even just those quick marks, there's something about that just really just like it just that's awesome signature. You know, have something like just simple like that, whatever. And mine's just pretty straightforward. Brent Greenwood. Sometimes it's B Greenwood. Sometimes it's just Brent. It all depends on the size of the piece and where I want to put it. Sometimes I sign it on the left, sometimes it's on the right, sometimes it's up vertical, sometimes it's on the side. But what I didn't want to do, however I signed it, I didn't want it to take away from my piece. Mm-hmm. I know some artists have said, you know, because of that, they'll sign the back only. And I'll sign the back too, but I want my signature to be somewhere on there. But if it takes away from the piece itself, I'm not going to put it on there. I'll put it on the side, mm-hmm. at least. But so whenever I use my signature, I usually use a color that's in the painting too. You know, the same kind of color. And I'll just put it in a place that's kind of subtle. Like that's mm-hmm. real subtle, but yet it's still there. Because I don't want it to take away from everything else happening. You know, I could have just put it up there in nice big brown letter, but to me it would take away from this whole kind of thing happening. Mm-hmm. So I still want it in there, but I just want it to be subtle and not to take away from anything else happening in the piece.
You have many more years to paint, but I am wondering, so far, what's been, looking back, what was an important fork in the road when you could have gone one way and you chose to go this other way?
I think I kind of mentioned that in the sense that when I look back, it's probably that Red Earth rejection. You know, I really could have started like going this other direction of painting faces and doing whatever, and then luckily my wife, you know, kind of headed me off at the pass. I said, don't do that. So I guess, you know, I have her to thank for me continuing to do what I do, in that sense, you know, with the painting and staying true to who I was as an artist. And that was probably one major fork. The other has just been the challenge of maintaining a job to pay the bills as well as be an artist. You know, many nights, you know, I've been staying up all night and I go to work, and you know, I don't need to be doing that. And it's just tough, you know, deadlines. You got to meet your deadlines, and it's like having another job on top of your full-time job. So that was a challenge. I mean, in a sense to where at times I'd be lying if I didn't say I didn't want to give up. I mean, there's times I say, you know, it's just easier. Can I just make this a true hobby and just do it whenever I want and put it away for a while? It's easy. Can I just go play golf, or can I just I don't play golf, but that was going to give me a chance to. Can I just like, I don't want to say like be like everybody else, but can I just come home and have a beer and watch football? You know, whatever, you know, that would be the easy way out. I saw. And like my friend, and rest in peace, but Dan Lomahaftawa, we shared some gallery time together. You know, he said being an artist isn't easy. He said, you know what? He said it's not. You know, I've heard that being an artist, being Indian's not easy. You know, because being Indian too, you know, you have to juggle your obligations of your culture, which are first and foremost, really, you're always going to be Indian to who you are. But at the same time, you got to provide for your family. You got to put a roof over your head, food on the table, clothes on their back. So you have to have a way to make ends meet, you know. And singing at powwows, or just trying to live on your artwork sometimes. For me, it was feast or famine, and I just couldn't see myself doing it. So I was like, man, it'd just be easier just to get up at 6 a.m. and go to work and come home and know I had a paycheck coming in. And then the post office is a good paycheck. But after so long of doing that, so many years of doing it, 19 years of doing that, I realized that's not what I want. I wasn't fulfilling I didn't feel like I was fulfilling my duty as an artist, because I was always going to be an artist. I try to take it easy, but it's always calling me back. You know, I'm always coming back to it. After, you know, so I can take a break real easy. I mean, I can take a break, but it always ends. I always end up getting back into it one way or the other. And sometimes I have had you know, it's like writer's block. I've had a creative block where I just don't feel like doing nothing. And I could see myself at that time is because I was just like coming home from work at the post office, so tired, so drained, that I just didn't feel like doing anything. I didn't feel like doing art. And so days can turn into weeks real quick. But like I said, something was always calling me back in the studio to get back to work. So I just know I never could put it away. So that's why I said, you know, I just need to, it's really picking up. I'm really staying busy with it now. I need to focus on getting closer to home and doing this more as, even though it's my part-time job, it's my primary source of income. And I enjoy that flexibility I have to be able to do what I do, and people enjoy it too. So I just feel, like I said, I guess in short, I mean, I just feel really blessed to be able to do what I'm doing. And like anyone that is a musician or an actor and gets paid to do what they love to do, it's an awesome feeling. Even working in Indian education right now, I'm very fulfilled at what I do, helping the students, helping them with cultural enrichment, helping them stay on top of their grades. Sometimes I'm like, I get paid to do this, you know, because it's what I know. I'm an advocate for education, higher education. I'm an advocate for the arts or culture, especially culture. I want our kids up here, our Indian education kids, because this is an urban setting, I know not all of them are in tune or aware of that, but I want to make it as available as much as possible to teach them, to help them, not teach them, but help them be aware of, you know what, you're Chickasaw, you're Arapaho, you know, you're not just a Native American, you know, you have a people, you have a culture, a tribe, you have these ceremonies, these dances, we do things in an intertribal sense, come do this with us. You know, I've been teaching some little small art workshops for the students, working with them here and there, so it's been great. And so that's where I feel like I'm at. I feel very fulfilled and just able to continue to do what I do.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to add or we haven't covered before we look at your artwork?
No, I think I've talked enough. I just think it all comes from a place of knowing. You know, I don't paint anything that I don't feel like I haven't researched. You know, obviously I'm going to look up. I'm going to study what I'm painting, what I'm wanting to portray. I do reference photos, you know, from different things, mainly for poses and things like that. But I don't paint to mimic. You know, I don't paint to copy this photo or that photo. Even if some of my wildlife pieces, I'll reference photos, but then I got to make it more impressionistic, and I got to do this or that too, because I don't ever want it to be just like someone's photo or other piece of interpretive work. Even though it is a photograph, it's someone else's thought and idea. You know, it's the way they decide to shoot that image, right? So I'm just going to reference it. I'm not going to copy it. So I don't know. I just like to say that because that's why I try to teach my the kids I mentor, and I teach at the Chickasaw Summer Arts Academy too. So, which is now the Chickasaw Arts Academy because it's going to be an ongoing thing throughout the year. But that's one thing I tell them. So you can reference photos, but make it your own. Mm-hmm. That's where the creative side, that creative nature is going to come out. The artistic side of you is really going to come out. Reference it, but then make it your own. Your own interpretation. You know, how you take it in here and how it comes up through here. It's got to be you. You know, so that's what I try to impress upon them because that's what I do. So anyway, that's kind of like where I'm coming from as an artist. So
okay. Well, we'll take a look at your paintings
real
quick. Okay, Brent, would you like to tell us a little bit about this painting?
Yes, this piece is called "Bringing Up the Sun." It's really become kind of a signature piece of mine. It's used widely throughout the Chickasaw Nation, and it's kind of cool how art sometimes tends to just fall into place for you and happen the way it does. But what I wanted to do with this piece was obviously express the stomp dance, and the way I did it was I wanted to show the energy, the movement, and the style of the dancer. And so what I did was I have these southeastern style motifs of like the scrollwork design happening, and I've seen that throughout different artifacts and things, but I wanted to interpret it into just another way instead of just being typical. Okay, we can just put this simple scrollwork design, like you said, like I told you earlier, looking at it but then reinterpreting it in my own way. So I just put this here as a design element. For people, it's become smoke of the fire. It's become dust from the stomp dancer, and that's cool because they've interpreted it as that. So I've left it. It's however they want to see it. I just want it to be a simple design. So anyway, with that, I incorporated these sun circles in the background. And the sun circles, to me, on the way the way these ended up, it reads from left to right, and I didn't even plan this. I like these particular sun circles and the movement of them, so I put them on here. And after I got them on here, I'm like, wow, you know what? That really does have like a flow. To me, this one on the left represents like the morning star right here. And the sun, how it begins to come up, so you can kind of see some of these sun rays. And then when you kind of move over to the next one, that to me, that's like broad daylight. You got the sun, you got just the bright white of the sun, and then it transitions into night. So you got like this whirlwind or this spiral design. And so you see night and day until you ultimately end up on the far right, and you got this crescent moon, and you got a total night time, like sun circle, so to speak. There's a lot of underpainting happening in this. I wanted the warm colors of the fire to be evident, so that's why you see this nice warm tones, and the stars obviously, but then I got this magenta happening. And like I said, I always have 2 or 3 colors of like red or magenta, of oranges, of yellows working, so as I'm painting I can blend them like onto my canvas. And so I work with 3 or 4 different colors at a time. It's just never one color straight out the tube and then try to blend with another one onto my canvas. Onto my palette. To make one color, I kind of create that blending effect on my canvas with the colors, the 2 or 3 colors.
Right.
So anyway, this one's
neat.
called Bringing Up the Sun.
How about this piece?
Yeah, this piece was, I saw this photo. There's this photo that really stood out to me. There was this, my wife, like I said, she's a graphic designer, so she has, she always puts together these calendars for her tribe. And this one particular picture, she had this Oto man painting all these like designs on the side of a teepee. So I was just that got to me in a way that, okay, the message for me that I got from it was that we're still doing our thing in a traditional sense by telling our stories, the traditional stories, representing our traditional designs and motifs, but we're doing it in a modern sense, with a modern sensibility of design and materials. So I took the idea of the man painting a teepee, except of him painting like typical like ledger style horses or marks. He's got more of a graffiti-esque
Right.
design element going on. But within this, there's still elements of symbolism that are like native. You know, I got the handprint, which in turn, you know, when I put this on there, I totally saw a buffalo head. And so I put those eyeballs in there, so there's a buffalo head in there. There's this horse design, and these designs right here are like hoof marks, hoof prints. And then you got the crescent moon, star, cross, what have you. And that's like a leaf pattern. So there's all these traditional elements of design, but yet done in contemporary sense. So like I said, he's still got the typical, you know, just like kind of an old, maybe a stick, whatever that's dipped in paint that he's using this, but yet you got this graffiti style stuff happening, real modern elements, and the color combinations real kind of graffiti-esque too. So, but everything else, like I said, this is like a, you know, just a kind of a typical of an Oto floral pattern.
Right.
And the style of beadwork, the Oto beadwork is notable because everything is outlined in white beads. So that's why I want to make sure I reference that. It wasn't actually a pattern that was on the man itself, but I took that pattern from something else that was Oto and incorporated it into my own and kind of come up with this design. So, and the two, I just kept my background real soft and kind of subtle. I always kind of like things that kind of have a subtlety to it. And when it comes to my landscapes, almost kind of like a romantic style of painting in a way. But then you got this other kind of real in your face, and here it is, it's coming at you. So, and this particular piece is called Old Man Wild Style because of this graffiti. You know, there's a style of graffiti that is called Wild Style, and just by calling it Old Man Wild Style, we always sometimes reference our elderly people when we say Old Man not Greenwood, but like we might say Old Man so and so or Old Man this guy, you know, just so we were talking about them elders. So, but yeah, this is just like conveying those thoughts of the traditional, yet we're using new elements, materials, and new interpretations of who we are and what we are as far as symbolism and how it's speaking to a new generation of artists. Yeah, this piece is reverencing the strength of the woman and the importance of her in our life, you know, the giver of life for us, the bearer of our children. This piece is actually called Native Sisters, and I wanted to just reference the different style of Indian women with different tribal elements, but yet we're all connected. We're all Indian. We're all Native, and like my wife and her best friends, they call each other sister girls. You know, they're like Indian way when you adopt someone, or not adopt someone, but Indian way when you take on an Indian friend, they're your friend for life. And so I just saw this as speaking to that idea. And so that's why I call it Native Sisters, because they're all connected. They're sisters, yet they're different tribes, but yet they're still connected in that way. So the strength of the woman, the status of the woman is kind of expressed up here with the elk's teeth, because if there was a lot of elk's teeth on, even though none of these women have elk's teeth on their dress, I'm still referencing that thought or that idea that that was kind of a status symbol. The more highly you were thought of, if more special you were, if you had a lot of elk's teeth on your dress. So it was kind of a status symbol. So this one too, the background and everything kind of takes a Rothko-esque type of painting approach. So that's kind of what I wanted to express with this piece. But the bottom line is the subject matter of the Native Sisters and that whole idea.
Right. I like that one.
It's the first time I really portrayed a Southeastern style woman or figure in this sense. It's not typical like ledger to see Southeastern style of art in that sense. And you know, I might be contradicting myself in a small sense because I said I don't cross the two. But in this sense, it's different. You know, it's more of a interpretation of this style, yet it's done in totally, you know, Southeastern style clothing. Although you see the style of ledger is still kind of interpreting. I don't know if it makes sense. I just want, I mean, I'm just trying not to confuse as to say.
Well, it's a record, yeah. Like
yeah, it's kind of, this is the record,
of the
yeah.
Southeastern.
It is just done in a ledger style.
Right.
But not to confuse that it's not ledger art. You know,
right.
It's influenced by ledger, but it's not ledger art. I'll just leave it at that.
Want to tell us about this a little bit?
Yeah, this is a black-chinned hummingbird. I just wanted, with this piece, I just wanted to create movement. I had Southeastern style motifs in mind, so you see like that zigzag pattern. To me, I just could see that hummingbird kind of flying all over the place. So that represents movement. And there again, like in kind of like in Bringing Up the Sun, where I had like those scroll designs.
Right.
I use them again and to represent the movement of wind, air, you know, with his wings. So that's what that represents in this one.
Right.
So it's kind of this one's just kind of a straightforward kind of piece.
But it looks like, is it two canvases?
Yeah. Another thing is I like to paint on thicker canvases.
Oh.
So one of my friends had did this before, and I said, hey, I got some thin canvases I want to not get rid of, but I could use them. So I ended up putting together two small canvases to make a thick one.
Yeah, that's cool.
Just because I like the thicker ones. So. But this one, like I said, straightforward. It's just sometimes, you know, I just want to have just hankering to paint a hummingbird, you know, just to do it. So that's why I did. So I've done a couple hummingbirds now, and I've done butterflies and hummingbirds, and we have a book on insects, so I'll reference that for butterflies. But yeah, so that was just a black-chinned hummingbird.
Well, thank you very much for your time today, Brent.
Thanks.